Hi, you're watching a very special recorded session of Agenda AWANI, thanks to the ASEAN Integrity Dialogue 2017. The theme reinventing good governance through universal values sounds so academic, but I'm just going to go layman today because I've got one of the greatest member or thought leader of ASEAN, which is Tan Sri, Dr. Surin Pitsuwan. Thank you so much. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. I can start this like BBC or CNN and ask you, good governance, but I'm going to go the other way around, the ASEAN way, which is a dream. A narrative about a dream that any young kid who has to cycle more than 20 kilometers every morning early on just to get to school, to be enlightened, to have knowledge, and to be someone so that he or she can come back to the village that they come from and give better life to their parents, to the society around them. And without the ecosystem ensuring there's equal opportunity, that one person, whether he cycles 50 kilometers, studies 24 hours or not, wouldn't be able to be guaranteed access because he might achieve it, but the access might not be given to him or her because favoritism means I choose someone else who may be less able and qualified, but because they are closer to me. So I would like to sum up your address at the ASEAN Integrity Dialogue like that. So your own life story personifies the struggle of the majority of the ASEAN population for rule of law, for justice, to better ourselves.
Yes.
And I would like to allude to the point that you said, without having good governance, coming from the values of integrity, we will not break the shackles of middle income trap. Can you please honor us by giving your views to that?
Well, I think people could succeed, but there would be exceptions. What we would like to have on the landscape of ASEAN or every individual member state would be to make it a rule that more people, average people, can succeed on the level playing field. That is, you're not being judged by your families, your lineage, your last name, your connections, but the capacity, and the ability, and the individual worth that you are. Because we are being blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by God, with the potentiality in every one of us. And it is up to us to develop them, up to us to allow it to flourish. That potentiality, that fitrah inside every one of us needs nurturing, needs enabling environment and society. My journey was a struggle, but I think determination with, of course, hidayah, with grace, with kindness, the path was open. But I don't want it to be an exception. Okay. In fact, I wrote a book, Success is not an exception. Yes. Anybody who could do the same journey with the same commitment, with the same passion, with the same determination, would succeed. So you start the journey, you know all the struggles, you know all the obstacles, you try to negotiate around those obstacles. Alhamdulillah, from Budak Ponok, I was born in a Ponok. Sure. The Ponok is still living, yes. 80 years old now. My mother is still teaching Quran. But then I could become Foreign Minister of Thailand and then yes. Secretary General of ASEAN. At the opening of the new premise of the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies, okay. Your Agung was there. Yes. In June, I believe. I was introduced to Prince Charles, the Crown Prince of the UK, and that this is so and so, former Foreign Minister of Thailand, former ASEAN Secretary General, and he is a Muslim. Prince Charles looked at me and looked at the person who introduced me and said, a Muslim foreign minister from Thailand. That says something about Thailand.
Yes.
So I guess when you have the determination, you have the passion to get over all these limitations, you are bound to get somewhere, if not the pinnacle of the journey.
Yes.
But you're going to go somewhere. That's why you have to dream. That's
Yes.
why you have to aspire for higher purposes. But I don't want the majority of children from now onward to have to struggle that hard.
Correct.
I think we could make it easier for them by not being not giving favors, but giving equal treatment. That is, you are judged on your ability, you are judged on your performance, you are judged on your commitment. Then I think the ASEAN landscape or Thailand or Malaysia would be better off.
You must have read it, Prince Charles, for the first ever Muslim mayor of London. You know, and that's how the world has flipped to many people's mind. The values used to be ours, the Eastern values that we like to see it as. But now we see the Scandinavian countries institutionalizing and making it sort of even a social cultural thing. Like they look after their natural environment with so strict of policy and guidelines. But for us, just because the name of progress and wanting more GDP, for example, we have less green. Our rivers are not clear water anymore. I'm sure when you were young going to Krabi, the beaches were like tranquil to the max.
Yes.
So how can we collectively now, if no one country in ASEAN can fight this alone, maybe the strength is in the collective. But I've heard you said at this address that except for Singapore, the others are just fighting at number 160 or 70. So how do we put good governance if we're still struggling?
We need an institution like Integriti in Malaysia.
Okay.
That is to keep punching, keep
at it.
Keep at it, and keep raising the profile of the issue. As I said, integrity, you have to begin with the individuals.
Okay.
Integrity means self-confidence. Integrity means self-worth,
Yes.
self-dignity,
Yes.
self-respect. And if you have that pride, that confidence in yourself, you are willing to go through all these temptations, not taking shortcuts,
Correct.
not taking benefit and profits along the way on your individual journey. But a sense of urgency.
Okay.
And I can sense that people here at Integrity together a collective sense of urgency, and for that matter, I think the people of Malaysia.
I've always been debating with Dr. Anis on many things, but one of it that I've put to him is, we also sometimes need wisdom. And there's no wisdom like going through experiences. You have your baptism of fire, looking at it from a very regional perspective of the East Timor, Timor-Leste before perspective. But now, ASEAN also have new contentious issues that can't be tolerated not just by the ASEAN community, but even by the global community. And you've made this point again and again. The world has changed so much since 1967. Now I'm going to put it to you that the world has changed so much since the ASEAN Charter coming into effect in 2008. And we have to go for the first break, but coming back, how do we reconcile all this? The spirit of ASEAN from 67, the ASEAN Charter that we try so much to bring into realization, but the ASEAN Secretariat, it has limited resources. How do we put this across? While we're struggling to answer all that, then we have the issues like the Rohingya issue. So how do we reconcile all this going forward? Because otherwise, through the internet and whatnot, we're going to lose the aspiration of our younger generation. And you ended your keynote address by saying that we need to invest in the young. Let's talk to Dr. Surin right after this. thanks to Institute Integriti Malaysia, I'm still here with Tan Sri Dr. Surin Pitsuwan. I'm just going to go straight to it. I asked a very lengthy premise, but the point is, a lot of challenges, time has changed, global pressures, and we need to convince our young, and the proof is in the pudding. If we have the ASEAN Charter, we are not really addressing the Rohingya issues, for example. How can we even have faith with our own younger generation?
Well, the idea of the Charter and the community were to strengthen ASEAN in order to compete with the rest of the world. I think in the early 80s, the phrase was, oxygen has been taken away from Southeast Asia, diverted to China, diverted to India. So the community idea came into being to make us together more competitive. Issues like the Rohingyas, issues like internal conflicts, tensions, corruption, inequity, inequality, poverty, all these issues are not going to allow ASEAN to achieve that competitiveness that we thought we would get from establishing a community. Community would be just a vision. We are not going to realize it. So in the end, I think in the Charter and in the Bangkok Declaration establishing ASEAN in the first place 50 years ago, there was an implication that eventually the peoples of ASEAN will have to be taken into this journey.
Yes.
We cannot leave it to the leaders, cannot leave it to the diplomats, cannot leave it to the politicians. People, all people, the majority of the people will have to be inspired and convinced that this is the right journey that they want. So to me, you have to open up the landscape, you have to admit the people to participate. To me, democracy is already part, from the very beginning.
From the DNA.
From the DNA of ASEAN, it's for us to really realize it, identify it, and implement it. Because the most important phrases in the declaration 50 years ago, the Bangkok Declaration, was that ASEAN represents the collective will of the peoples of Southeast Asia. They will bind themselves together through sacrifices and efforts to achieve the fruits or the blessings of peace, freedom, and prosperity for their peoples and for their posterity. It means the peoples are the targets, the people are the ends of this effort, of this journey. So you have to open up and admit the people. How do you admit the people? Through political process. What kind of political process? It has to be equal and democratic.
Yes.
To me, democracy for ASEAN is imperative. Without that, the majority of the people are not going to be part of the journey, and we are not going to be able to address those issues that you raise, issues of inequality, issues of ethnic conflicts, issue of prejudices. I think more people have to be part of this ASEAN community building and learn from each other, not only tolerate each other, but respect the differences among them. The diversity is something for us to manage, but that precise diversity is also our asset.
Tan Sri, I see the ASEAN Charter is like a young sapling or a young tree growing. Of course, it will have to face threats, and to ensure that the threats can be managed, we have to guard it. And there's no better guarding than the rule of law. And you've alluded to this many, many times. But for today, maybe through your wide, extensive travel, not just in ASEAN, but globally, how do we ensure a bit more help, a bit more incentive for the guarding of the young tree, for allowing the fruition of the rule of law? Because democracy without rule of law is worse than not having democracy.
It's rule by law, not rule of law.
Yeah.
You enact law to rule people
without
their consent, which is a contradiction. It's not
in the hands of the few. Power is dangerous if it's not putting people first.
Well, I think right now it's better than before. People are more aware, people are more connected. participation doesn't mean you have to take part in governance directly, physically. Participation means you can communicate, you can demand, you can create pressure, through social media, through new communication gadgets. And I think this is opening a new area for our people to demand for participation, for transparency, and they will act as owners of this community.
But don't you think the political side and actors will be the last to want change and to change?
Well, they have to be convinced that to survive, they have to change. Things have happened around the world that you can come from far off the field, avoiding traditional institutions, political parties. You could get into the middle of power because people are more aware, people are awakened, and they want to be in control. And they're going to participate not only at the ballot box 4 years, once every 4 years, but in between, and tracking, and participating, and monitoring. This is what we need. And I think we have the capacity to do it, but yes, you are right. I mean, those in power will resist. That's very, very natural. They don't want to lose power. But then our responsibility is to pry open, to bring the people along and to demand. That's why I said democratization is imperative if you want to make ASEAN a competitive community.
Is that why we're seeing the trend around the world of a leader aged only 31 years old, 40-something?
Younger people without institutional affiliation, traditional parties have lost control. They come in from, as I said, left field, right field, somewhere far from the political stage, because people could be mobilized. And I think that's what will happen to ASEAN. And those leaders those elites who stand against that trend are going to be swept by this tsunami of political awakening.
And we know all about tsunami, whether it's political or real from the ocean. But I have to go for the last break. Once we are back, I also want to look at hope for the future. I'm sure Tan Sri Doctor has gone around the region and seen young buds of hope everywhere. And social media, for example, we do not have to wait for now the foreign minister to tell us about another country. We can speak directly to them day to day, second by second. So what new hope can be built, not waiting for the institution or the bureaucracy, that the people themselves can galvanize? Let's talk about that after this last break. Never enough time with great people. I'm going to go straight to Tan Sri Dr. Surin. Hopes around the region that you have seen. What gives you the greatest strength looking forward?
I think the younger generation, to their credit and to my surprise, more engaged, more participatory in public affairs, in the affairs of their own community, more than I thought they would be. There was a book fair in Bangkok recently. I went for the first time in many years, full of young people, looking for all sorts of books, all sorts of reading materials in order to inform themselves more. And I think now the mind can be extended, can be expanded. The desire to have a better future can be cultivated without anybody getting involved. They could seek those inspiration themselves from the the information that they could access to, and they can have easy access to. So I think our hope is on the younger people, and as I said, if governments are slow, the younger people is going to sweep them away. Younger generation are going to ask for bigger space, larger space, more opportunity, and more meaningful participation in the affairs, because it's going to be their future. Because they are sitting here looking into the future. By the year 2050, there will be 2 billion more human beings joining us, joining them. Now 7.4, 7.5. what are we going to do with that world in 33 years' time? The younger people will have to worry about that. Younger generation will have to worry about that. I may not live to see that day, but the younger generation will have to find out, how are we going to live? How are we going to share? How are we going to manage that crowded, that hot, that borderless world? I think they are realizing now that everyone is going to be a minority. Nobody is a majority in this world anymore. Because in the world of 9.5 billion people, the Chinese are going to be minority.
Correct.
14,000, 100 million of them are going to be also. The Indians are going to be minority. So how are we going to live in that world of diversity? I think the younger generation are being faced with those problems, are being confronted with those challenges. Climate change, global warming. I mean,
we only have one planet.
All these things, only this. There's no plan B to migrate to any other planet, as far as I know. Do you know of it? Anyone? No. So somehow we have to take custody of this. Again, from the Quran, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. We want, Allah said, to create a custodian, a vicegerent, our representative on earth, to take care of it. I think that's not only for Islam.
Correct.
That's for the wisdom of all humanity, that somehow human beings, human species, intelligent species, human beings will have to take care of this world. That's why sustainability. It have taken us few hundred years to come to the point where we realize that, the world is literally running out of gas. We are now realizing that, but the younger generation not only aware, not only realizing it, but they have to plan for it. I think this is going to be the fuel that encourage them to think of a better future, how to manage that future.
And ASEAN is well positioned for that, because we have always
Well, ASEAN is a platform, would cater for that kind of collective journey, collective thinking, collective analysis of the problem, take it as a unit. We can't do outside of this unit. We are capable, we think of this, and we construct this space, this community. Let's see if it can be a platform to address those common problems to the region and to the humanity at large. And I think we are capable of doing that. This is the center of gravity.
Correct.
Onward. And we are more important to the world than we were 20, 30, 40 years ago. That comes with responsibility. I think the younger generation will have to rise to the challenge.
There's both hope and a challenge, but sometimes integrity cannot just be spoken. It needs to be personified. Tan Sri Dr. Surin Pitsuwan, you have done that for us in this episode. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you.
Thanks to Institute Integrity Malaysia, and we'll catch you in another episode of Agenda AWANI very, very soon. Good night and goodbye.
Good night.